Shel with Paper Rock Studio, and today I'm sharing with you number 5 of the 6x6 original art canvases that I'm making to give away for the 6,000 subscriber giveaway. Yep, number 5, got one more to go. This canvas went through so many different layers and permutations and changes, and it wasn't so much that I was not liking what I was making, it was just that I kept changing it. Sometimes this happens, and so I had to speed this up to 8 times fast to make sure that I could fit most of it in, and a lot of the layers that you're going to see get obliterated in the end, and they're not there at all, but I had fun making them anyway, so I figured I would leave them in. I mean, there's no way to, like, change what happened. It happened, and that's what happened. So I started out with some water-soluble media. I started with gelatos, thinking I wanted to, play with something else besides acrylic paints, like I always do. So I figured I could put layers of clear gesso in between, and I could, mess around with different water-soluble media for my layers. So I picked a color scheme, which is kind of like a yellowy orange, an olive color, and a blue color. And that was my 3 color choices that I chose to use. I moved on from the gelatos after putting a layer of clear gesso on. I didn't dry it though, I just left it wet. And then I added some brushos. These are a pigment crystal that activates with water, and I just felt like playing with it. So I decided to play with it, added another layer of clear gesso and dried that layer, and then I decided I wanted some horizontal drips to add some movement. So I started with some India inks in a blue and dripped that across, dried it. Then I dripped green the other direction, still going horizontally. And then I think I added orange, still staying with that same 3 color scheme. Of course, you have to be careful because if you mix blue and orange together, it makes an unattractive color of brown. So, you got to dry in between. And then I decided to add some stamping, and I'm using my 4-inch round gel plate to make kind of like a little ink pad, and I'm using titanium white fluid acrylic paint from DecoArt, and just adding some white stamping with some different stamps from old ones from Stampin' Up, some spirals, some circles, some flower shapes, and giving that a real good dry. And I really like this background. I think it's really cool. I like it. I decided to add maybe in a little bit more color, so I bring back the same gelatos again and add those back in, and smear them and do some removal with the stencil again like I did in the first round. And I'm liking it. I think it's cute. Probably almost done. I'm gonna maybe, I don't know, add some, I guess I already added some splatters. So then I decided I need a focal image, so I go ahead and get out my white Stabilo All pencil. This is a water reactive pencil, so when I go over it with paint or collage or whatever I decide to do, it will be basically erased by the wet media, and so I don't need to worry about it, but I can draw on my background, which is pretty dark, and still be able to see it if I use the white. And if I use the black pencil, then when I went to put other water soluble media over the top, it would smear it, and I would, be dealing with some black smears. So I thought the white was a better choice, since the background was dark enough that I could use that one instead of the black. If I'd used a graphite pencil, I wouldn't be able to see it on the background. So the white worked out really well. Excuse me. So then I used some gesso to paint in. I obviously drew butterflies or moths or something to paint them in so that it will cover the darker background, and I'll have a lighter foreground image. Then I also drew these little wavy lines, and I decided that they were maybe some vines or something. So I'm using my fine liner, which is filled up with a fluid titanium white paint, to color those in, the little leaves and vines. I keep coughing. And I'm pretty happy with it. Still not sure what I'm going to do with those moths or butterflies. A couple options. I could paint them with acrylic paint or some other, pencils or something, or even some alcohol markers, or I could collage them. Couldn't decide. So I decided to go ahead and do collage. So I used a piece of deli paper and traced around the butterflies that I had drawn onto this deli paper, which is pretty translucent, so I can see through it. And I'm just using a permanent micron pen. It's a pigment pen that was in my drawer, whatever. Wasn't too worried about it. Just wanted some black lines. And I decided to get out some different colors of papers, color boxes. These are plastic boxes that come with mini cinnamon rolls from the bakery at the store. My mom loves them. She eats them, and then she gives me the boxes. And so that's what I sort all my scraps into: little pieces of jelly prints, pieces of paper that has wiped off paint, just, painty papers, whatever, scraps. There are some scrapbooking papers and just different things. So I'm using teeny tiny bits of the paper, gluing it down with Liquitex matte gel medium, and creating colorful butterflies. In hindsight, and hindsight is always 20/20, I should have made the butterflies a contrasting color to the background. Like maybe, I don't know, purple contrast with orange really well, or, just something else. But the colors that I end up using are too similar to the colors of the background. And that was probably my first mistake, because I like the background, but my foreground images of these butterflies are not going to stand out on it because they're the same color. So I don't know what I was thinking. I wasn't thinking. I was just playing, and I did not have a plan at all for this. I was just messing around trying to get some canvases done before I leave on my driving trip. Of course, when you see this video, I'll be on the road driving. I'll probably schedule this for the 20th, but today is actually the 13th. So you see how that goes. When I am going to take a trip, I need to create videos in advance and schedule them to come out on their own. And so I always feel a little bit rushed, and I wasn't thinking real hard about what I was doing. I was just doing it. So I cut out my butterfly wings and I glue them down, again using the same gel medium, which is the matte gel medium from Liquitex. And then I do need to cover their little bodies, so I get some blue paper, darker blue paper, and cover the butterfly bodies, which I hadn't done in advance, or when I did the wings. I did the wings and then just, I guess, forgot about the bodies. I don't know. I was like, oh, yeah, the butterflies do need bodies and antenna. So I fixed that little omission, and then cut out the other side of the butterfly wings. And as you can see, as I'm gluing down, too close to the color of the background. Why didn't I make them an opposing color? I just don't know. I had those colors in my head, and those are the colors I used. So there's the little butterfly body. I cut it all out in one piece. And then the second butterfly, I cut it all out in one piece as well. So I glued it all down, gave it a really good dry with my heat tool, and then I said to myself, there's not enough contrast. What should I do? So I decide that I'm going to use some watered down white gesso and just go over the background. So this is the point where whatever work I did on the background is mostly completely obliterated. And this is mixed media. You keep putting layers on. Sometimes layers, most of the time, the layers that you put underneath the other layers show through, and that's your intention. In this case, I pretty much just wanted to lighten everything up, so you've still got kind of a dreamy look of those colors shining through the background, especially the brusho, because you can't really get rid of brusho. Even though you put coat after coat after coat of stuff on top, it still bleeds through. It actually kind of looks cool. But then I thought, ugh, it's too gray, it's too pale. So I decided to do some glazing. And this is an acrylic glaze from Golden. And then I'm adding some of the fluid deco art colors to it to tint it. Why don't I just use water and water down those paints? Well, acrylic paint is a plastic, and if you dilute it too much, then it won't stay. It won't stick anymore, and it'll start to peel. So that's when you start using a glazing medium to mix it to make a tint. And this just makes the same color, only very translucent, but doesn't change the property of the paint. Still leaving it, pretty much it'll stick on there. So that's the reason that you use glazing medium. And sometimes I do this just for fun. This time it was kind of like, I don't know, corrective, I guess. So then, still needing more contrast, because now I've added back in orange, green, and blue again, because those are the colors I wanted. So I decided to use my black Stabilo All pencil. This is a pencil that you can write on pretty much anything with, ceramic, whatever. It writes really well over acrylic paint. And then it is activatable. I'm sure that's a word, activatable. Look it up. You can activate it with water to kind of like blend it out into the background. So that's what I'm doing, using a water barrel brush, one that has water in the barrel, and synthetic bristles. Of course, this stuff isn't permanent, so I will need to seal this canvas, which I would have done anyway. I'll spray seal all these canvases before I send them out. So that adds a huge amount of contrast. And I just found out and didn't know that there's a water-soluble graphite colored Stabilo All pencil. I didn't know that. So I'm going to get one of those, and I might have preferred that instead of the real stark black, maybe a gray. But I'm going to have to buy one before I can try it out. I found that out from Dee Dee Catron. She was doing a video and she was using a graphite colored Stabilo All pencil. I'm like, I didn't even know that existed. I knew they had blue and brown and green and white and red and maybe yellow, but didn't know that there was a graphite gray color. That could come in really handy. I'm going to order it. From Amazon, of course, because I'm an Amazon girl. So now my butterflies are standing out from the background. Quite a bit. Quite a bit. Give that a good dry and decide, okay, now I've almost completely obliterated my vines that I painstakingly drew on there. So I get my fine liner back out with the fluid acrylic paint in it and go over them again. This time leaving the leaves open so that that color that I've applied with the tint, with the glazing, shows through the leaves, which I think is a pretty cool effect. And I'm liking that. I think that's pretty nice. But now I've got black in one place, white in another place, which does not please me. I'm kind of like, they're too separate. It's not blending. It's not cohesive. The composition I'm still not happy with it. So what is my solution? Well, I'll add white where there isn't white. So then I decide to go in and doodle detail the insides of the wings and add a few highlights here and there and dots and things like that of the butterflies. And that makes me happy because now I can see the butterflies there. There's a contrast between the background and the foreground, but I don't have this random white just on the edges and not in the center of the composition. Also, it adds more detail, which I always like detail. And it's kind of like doodling. It's pretty relaxing. And, I'm not planning it a whole lot. I'm just adding the lines where I feel like adding the lines. It's pretty fun. I like doing this. I've been kind of obsessed with this fine liner bottle recently. I'll put a link in the description box below so you can get one too, in case you're as obsessed as me. So then I'm happy with that, but now I have these areas where there isn't any pattern because all that pretty pattern that I made when I was doing all those layers is gone because I painted over it with gesso and I, painted it over and yeah, those cute little flowers that I'd put in and the stamping, it's all gone. So I decided to come back with some more stamping and I'm using some orange paint to use this spiral stamp again, which is one of my very favorites ever. Really into spirals. So that brings a little bit more pattern back and adds some pattern into those blank areas that had nothing. And then I decide to add some white splatters to kind of also fill in that section that has no white in it to make everything more cohesive. Give that a good dry. Now normally I would not make you watch the paint drying with the heat tool, but at this point in my video when I try to splice it, it just gets all broken. So the rest of it you're going to watch without any editing at all. Sorry, but I can't edit if it makes the video broken. I don't want to start all over again. So I decide that I need some darker splatters as well. So instead of using the pure black, I'm using an indigo colored paint, which is almost black, but it's a really dark blue, to add some darker splatters around the edges and also to edge the entire canvas with a sponge. If you're enjoying this video, please remember to give it a thumbs up, leave me a comment so I know you were here, subscribe if you haven't already, turn on your notification bell, share, all those things. Those things always help my channel grow by helping other people who might be interested in my content, helps me be found by other people when you do those things for me, so I'm always grateful. And of course, keep watching for the video where I give all these away so that you can sign up to win by leaving a comment. That's probably coming out on the 28th of August, I think, because I think I'll be done with everything by then. So I had originally thought I would draw 3 butterflies, but I only drew 2 because I ran out of space. And so I decided that this canvas needed an additional element. So I'm using a rub-on. That's kind of a plasticky stuff stuck to a clear plastic, and then you use a stick to press it, press it, press it, press it, and then it comes off and is stuck down. And that also brings in another element of a dark color, and it's a 3 instead of 2. So I like that. Then I thought I might add some butterfly flying trails with my black fine liner, but I changed my mind and put it away. I decided I was done. So this canvas is done, and that's it for me. Thanks. Bye-bye.